final cast of the day, an old fisherman pulled a sealed brass vessel from the sea. He hoped it might bring food to his family. Instead, smoke rose from its mouth and formed a towering genie, one who had waited beneath the water for 1,800 years. The fisherman had given him freedom, yet the genie offered only one reward, a choice of how he would die. Tonight, we begin The Fisherman and the Genie. There was once an old fisherman who lived with his wife and 3 children. He was poor, and he never cast his net more than 4 times in a single day. One day at noon, he went down to the seashore. He set his basket on the sand, cast his net into the water, and waited for it to sink. Then he gathered the cords and began to pull. The net was so heavy that he could not lift it. He carried the end of the rope ashore, drove a stake into the ground, and tied it fast. Then he removed his outer garments, waded into the water, worked the net free, and dragged it onto the beach. At first he rejoiced, certain that he had made an extraordinary catch. But when he opened the net, he found a dead donkey tangled inside. The fisherman's heart sank. The wet net lay heavy at his feet, and the gulls circled above the empty shore. He looked toward the pale sky. There is no power and no strength except through God, the Most High, the Almighty. What strange luck! The words faded into the wind. Effort alone could not summon what had not been destined for him. He removed the dead animal, wrung out the net, and spread it across the sand. When he had finished, he waded back into the sea, invoked the name of God, and cast the net a second time. He waited for it to settle, then began to pull. This time it was even heavier and more firmly caught than before. Certain that it must be full of fish, he tied off the rope, entered the water, and struggled until the net came free. At last, he hauled it ashore. Inside it, he found a large earthen jar filled with mud and sand. The fisherman sighed at his misfortune. Others seemed to prosper with ease, while the sea still withheld the livelihood he sought. Then he threw the jar aside, wrung out and cleaned his net, asked God for forgiveness, and returned to the water for the 3rd time. He cast the net and waited. When he drew it in, he found nothing but broken pottery, bottles, fragments, and rubbish. The afternoon light had begun to soften, and the sea seemed wider than before. He looked up at the sky. My Lord, you know that I never cast my net more than 4 times in a day, and I have already cast it 3 times. He reminded himself that livelihood could neither be forced nor guaranteed. Then he invoked the name of God and cast the net for the 4th and final time. He waited for it to settle, then pulled. The net would not move. It seemed anchored to the seabed. The rope strained between his hands while the tide moved around his ankles. There is no power and no strength except through God. He removed his outer garments, dived into the water, and worked around the net until it came free. Then he dragged it ashore and opened it. Inside, he found a small brass vessel. It was heavy and completely sealed, its mouth closed with lead bearing the imprint of Solomon's seal. The fisherman brightened. Sunlight moved across the old brass beneath his hands. I can sell this at the market. It may be worth a small fortune in gold. He shook the vessel and felt its weight. Something about its silence made him pause. First, I should see what is inside. I will put whatever I find into my basket, then sell the vessel itself. He drew his knife and worked at the lead until the seal came loose. Then he set the vessel on the ground and shook it, expecting something to fall out. Nothing did. Then smoke began to rise from its mouth. The smoke climbed into the sky, spread across the horizon, and gathered into a vast cloud. Once every wisp had escaped, the cloud folded in upon itself and took the shape of a mighty genie. His head rose toward the clouds. His limbs were as massive as ship timbers, and his eyes burned like distant lamps. With wild hair and the dust of ages upon him, he was fearsome to behold. The fisherman began to shake. His teeth chattered, and fear clouded his sight. The genie looked across the shore as though waking from a dream that had lasted centuries. The smoke around him trembled, and his ancient voice shook the air. "There is no God but God. O Solomon, prophet of God, spare me. I will never disobey your command again." The fisherman stood very still beneath the genie's shadow. The waves slipped in and out behind him. "You call upon Solomon, yet he died 1,800 years ago. Tell me your story. Why were you imprisoned in this vessel?" The genie became still. Smoke drifted from his shoulders and darkened the sand. Then his voice descended from above, deep and almost gentle. "There is no God but God. I have good news for you, fisherman." The fisherman looked up, searching the genie's face. "What good news do you have for me?" A long silence passed. Then the genie's voice returned, cold and slow. "The good news is that I will kill you this very hour, and you may choose how you die." The fisherman recoiled as though the words themselves had struck him. The surf hissed over the sand behind his feet. "You call that good news? Then may no mercy find you, enemy of humankind. Why would you kill me? What have I done to deserve it? I freed you from this vessel, raised you from the bottom of the sea, and brought you back to dry land." The genie did not move. "Choose the manner of your death." The fisherman drew a slow breath. The sea moved softly behind him. "What crime have I committed that this should be my reward?" The smoke around the genie folded inward. "Listen to my story." The fisherman's mouth went dry, and his voice fell to a whisper. "Speak, but be quick. Fear has nearly overcome me." The air grew heavy. The genie answered slowly. "I was one of the rebellious genies, another powerful genie, and I defied Solomon, son of David. Solomon sent one of his trusted ministers to seize me. He defeated me and brought me before Solomon in disgrace. When Solomon saw me, he sought God's protection from my evil. He ordered me to accept the faith and submit to his authority, but I refused. So he had this brass vessel brought before him. He forced me inside, sealed it with lead, stamped it with Solomon's sacred seal, and commanded the genies to carry me away and cast me into the middle of the sea. I remained there for 100 years. During that time, I promised myself, whoever frees me, I will make him rich for the rest of his life. But the century passed, and no one came. Another 100 years passed. I swore, whoever frees me, I will reveal to him all the treasures of the earth. Still, no one came. Then 400 more years passed. I promised, whoever frees me, I will grant him 3 wishes. Yet still no one set me free. Then 1,200 more years passed. At last, hope curdled into rage. I swore that whoever freed me from that day forward would die, though I would allow him to choose the manner of his death. You are the one who released me. Now choose how you will die." The fisherman's heart beat against his ribs. The vessel lay between them. small and silent in the sand. What terrible luck. After all these years, was I spared only to fall into your hands? Show me mercy, and God may show mercy to you. Take my life, and he may send someone stronger to destroy you. The genie's shadow stretched across the shore. You must die. Choose how. The fisherman lowered his voice. At least spare me, because I set you free. A cold smile crossed the genie's ancient face. It is because you freed me that I intend to kill you. The fisherman lowered his eyes for a moment, listening to the slow pull of the tide. Mighty genie, I treated you with kindness, and you repay me with cruelty. The old proverb was right. We showed them kindness, and they answered with harm. Such is the way of the wicked. The genie answered without hesitation. Do not waste your breath. You will not escape. The fisherman realized that mercy would not move the genie. He thought, he is a genie, and I am only a man. But God has given me reason. I must outwit him before his cruelty destroys me. Then the fisherman lifted his head. His fear had not vanished, but something quieter had taken its place. Have you truly decided to kill me? The genie answered at once. Yes. The fisherman rested one hand beside the small brass vessel. Then, by Solomon's sacred seal, answer one question truthfully. At the mention of Solomon's sacred seal, the genie trembled. The smoke around him tightened like a storm cloud. Ask, but make it quick. The fisherman turned the vessel slowly in his hands, studying its narrow mouth. How could you possibly have fit inside this vessel? It is too small to hold even one of your hands, let alone your entire body. The genie leaned closer until he filled the fisherman's entire view. You do not believe I was inside it? The fisherman did not look away. I will not believe it until I see you inside with my own eyes. The genie's immense body dissolved into smoke. The cloud rose, curled in the air, and then streamed back into the vessel little by little until not a trace remained outside. From deep inside the brass vessel came a muffled, ancient voice. Do you believe me now, fisherman? I am entirely inside. The fisherman instantly snatched up the lead stopper bearing Solomon's seal and slammed it over the mouth of the vessel. The metal struck the lead with a hard, final sound. Now it is your turn to choose how you die. I will throw you back into the sea, build a house on this shore, and warn every fisherman who passes that a treacherous genie lies beneath the water, threatening anyone unwise enough to free him. The genie tried to break free, but Solomon's seal held fast. Once again, he was trapped in the smallest and most humiliating of prisons. The fisherman lifted the vessel and walked toward the sea. A desperate cry burst from inside the vessel. The fisherman tightened his fingers around the brass vessel. He answered softly, but without doubt. Yes, that is exactly what I intend. The genie's voice sank until it was almost gentle. What do you intend to do with me, fisherman? The fisherman lifted the vessel toward the dark water. His footsteps slowed at the edge of the tide. I will cast you back into the sea. You remained there for 1,800 years, and I will leave you beneath the sea forever. Did I not tell you, spare me, and God may spare you? Kill me, and God may destroy you? You refused. You chose treachery, so God placed you in my hands, and I have repaid your treachery in kind. From within the vessel came a cautious offer. The voice no longer sounded proud. Open the vessel, and I will reward you. The fisherman looked down at the sealed vessel. His hands trembled with fear, but his voice did not. You and I are like King Yunnan and Sage Ruyan. The vessel went quiet. A moment later, the genie's muffled voice came through the metal. What happened between King Yunnan and Sage Ruyan? Salt wind moved through the fisherman's beard. He looked down at the sealed vessel. Listen. Long ago, in a distant Persian city, there lived a king named Yunnan. He possessed great wealth, commanded armies, and was served by people from many nations. But he suffered from a severe skin disease. Every physician and sage in the kingdom had tried and failed to cure him. Medicines, powders, and ointments brought no relief. At that time, an elderly and learned physician named Ruyan arrived in the city. He had studied the writings of the Greeks, Persians, Romans, Arabs, and Syrians. He understood medicine, natural science, and the hidden properties of herbs and remedies. After a few days in the city, Ruyan heard of the king's illness and the failure of every physician who had treated him. He spent the night considering the case. The next morning, he dressed in his finest clothes, entered the palace, bowed low before the king, offered respectful greetings, and introduced himself. Ruyan raised his head and addressed the king. Your Majesty, I have heard of the illness that afflicts you and of the physician's failure to cure it. I can heal you without requiring you to swallow any medicine or use any ointment on your skin. King Yunnan stared at him in astonishment. The promise sounded impossible. How can that be? By God, if you cure me, I will enrich you and your descendants. Whatever you ask will be yours, and you will sit beside me as a trusted friend. Ruyan remained calm. He spoke with the quiet assurance of an experienced physician. I will cure you without causing your body any pain. The king's surprise slowly gave way to hope. When will this happen? Tomorrow. The physician left the palace, rented a house, and arranged his books, medicines, and instruments inside. He selected several remedies, prepared a hollow polo mallet, placed the medicine inside its handle, and made a matching ball. The next day, he returned to the palace, bowed before the king, and instructed him to ride to the polo field with his princes, advisors, and royal officials. When the king was ready, Ruyan handed him the mallet. Hold it exactly as I have shown you. Ride across the field and strike the ball with all your strength until your palm and your entire body begin to sweat. The medicine will pass from the handle into your hand and spread throughout your body. Once it has taken effect, return to the palace at once. Bathe thoroughly, then sleep. When you wake, you will be cured. King Yunnan took the mallet, mounted his horse, and chased the ball across the field. He struck it again and again, gripping the handle tightly until his palm and body were damp with sweat. Ruyan knew the medicine had taken effect and told him to return to the palace. The king returned and ordered the bathhouse cleared and prepared. Servants brought fresh garments. He bathed thoroughly, dressed, returned to his chamber, and slept. When morning came, he examined his body. Every trace of the disease had vanished, and his skin shone clear and bright. The king was overjoyed. He entered the royal court and took his place on the throne. His princes and royal officials gathered before him. When Ruyan arrived, the king rose, embraced him, seated him at his side, and bestowed magnificent robes of honor upon him. For several days, the king kept Ruyan close, shared his meals with him, and honored him with gold, fine robes, and a royal horse. Ruyan thanked the king warmly for his generosity and favor. King Yunnan could not stop marveling. He cured me without a potion or ointment, he thought. By God, this is true wisdom. I will honor him, reward him, and keep him close for the rest of my life. Before long, the whole court knew how deeply the king trusted the physician. But among King Yunan's ministers was a spiteful, greedy, and deeply envious vizier. When he saw how highly the king favored Ruyan, jealousy took hold of him, and he began plotting against the physician. The vizier lowered his voice until only the king could hear. "Your Majesty, your generosity is known to all. I have important counsel to offer. Were I to remain silent, I would be unworthy of your service. With your permission, I will speak." The king's fingers tightened around the armrest of the throne. "What is your advice?" The vizier leaned closer. His words were soft, careful, and poisonous. The ancients warned that anyone who ignores the consequences will eventually regret it. Your Majesty has drawn an enemy close and showered him with honors. I fear he intends to end your reign and your life. The king stiffened. Suspicion entered the silence between them. What enemy have I honored? The physician Ruyan. King Yunan looked across the hall, troubled but firm. Ruyan is my friend and the dearest man in my court. Every physician failed me, yet he cured me with nothing more than an object I held in my hand. There is no one like him anywhere in the East or the West. From this day forward, I will grant him a generous allowance in gold each month. Even half my kingdom would not repay what he has done. You speak from envy, not wisdom. A shadow of satisfaction passed over the vizier's face. His voice remained respectful. I speak out of concern. A man who cured you through something you held may also kill you through something you touch or merely smell. The king lifted his gaze from the vizier and remembered an older warning. Your advice reminds me of a Persian king who killed the falcon that had saved his life. The vizier tilted his head, inviting the king to continue. What happened to the king and the falcon? King Yunan settled back beneath the palace lamps, allowing an older memory to guide his warning. There was once a Persian king who loved travel, hunting, and the chase. He owned a falcon he had raised with great care. The bird never left his side, day or night, and often slept perched upon his hand. A small golden cup hung from its neck so the king could give it water. One day, the keeper of the hunting birds announced that it was time to ride. The king prepared for the hunt, settled the falcon on his gloved hand, and set out with his men. They reached a valley, spread their hunting nets, and soon a gazelle entered the enclosure. The king's pride hardened into a vow. Whoever lets this gazelle escape past his place in the line will answer with his life. The hunters closed in. The gazelle approached the king, rose on its hind legs, and folded its forelegs against its chest as though bowing. The king lowered his head, and in that instant the gazelle leaped over him and fled into the wilderness. The king saw his soldiers exchanging uneasy glances and asked the vizier what troubled them. The vizier lowered his voice. They remember your oath. The man who let the gazelle escape past him must die. The king's voice hardened. On my honor, I will not return until I have caught it. He rode after the gazelle. The falcon swooped at the gazelle's face again and again, distracting it until the king overtook it and brought it down. He then secured the gazelle across his saddle. The heat was fierce, the land was empty, and there was no water. Both the king and his horse were parched with thirst. Then the king noticed a clear, oily liquid dripping from a tree. He removed the golden cup from the falcon's neck, filled it, and raised it to his lips. The falcon struck the cup and knocked it from his hand. The king filled it again. Thinking the bird must be thirsty, he offered it the cup. The falcon struck it a second time and spilled the liquid. The king filled the cup a third time and held it out to his horse. Once again, The falcon knocked it away. Anger rose before wisdom could stop it. The king's voice rang out across the empty land. "Wretched bird! You have denied water to me, to yourself, and even to my horse." In a burst of anger, he struck the falcon, leaving it badly wounded. The wounded falcon lifted its head and tilted its beak toward the branches above. The king looked into the branches and saw a serpent coiled above him. The liquid dripping from the tree was venom. The king was overcome with regret. He mounted his horse, returned to camp with the gazelle, and gave it to the cook. Then he sat with the falcon cradled in his hand. The bird gave one final cry and went still. The king wept bitterly, realizing that in his anger he had destroyed the creature that had saved his life. King Yunnan turned toward the vizier. The warning of the old tale lingered in his voice. "Envy is speaking through you. You want me to kill Ruyan out of envy, and I would regret it just as the king regretted killing his falcon." The vizier bowed again, hiding envy beneath perfect courtesy. "When have I ever harmed you? I advise you only because I care for your safety. Follow my counsel and you will live. Ignore it, and you may suffer the fate of the prince whom his father's vizier nearly sent to his death." The hall grew still as the vizier turned to another warning from the past. There was once a king whose son was passionately devoted to hunting. The king ordered one of his ministers to accompany the prince wherever he went. One day, the prince rode out to hunt with the minister beside him. They spotted a large wild animal in the distance, and the minister pointed toward it. "There it is. Go after it." The prince pursued the animal until it vanished. By then, he had lost sight of his companions as well. Alone in the wilderness, he had no idea which way would lead him home. Then he saw a young woman weeping beside the road and asked who she was. Her answer came without warmth. "I am the daughter of an Indian king. I fell asleep while traveling and slipped from my mount before I woke. Now I am lost and alone." The prince took pity on her, helped her onto the horse behind him, and continued on his way. When they reached a ruined building, the young woman glanced toward the broken doorway. "My lord, I need a moment of privacy." He helped her down and waited. When she took too long, he quietly followed. Inside the ruin, he heard her speaking to her children and realized she was a ghoul. The darkness inside the ruin seemed to gather around her. "Children, today I have brought you a well-fed young man." Their voices rose together. "Bring him in, mother, so we can eat him." The prince trembled at what he heard. His face went pale, and he began to back away. The ghoul stepped outside and studied his pale, frightened face. "What is wrong?" The prince gripped the reins to steady his trembling hands. "An enemy is hunting me, and I am afraid." A false gentleness settled over her face. "Are you not a king's son? Why not pay your enemy and be rid of him?" The prince drew a shallow breath. "Money will not satisfy him. He wants my life, though I have done nothing wrong." The ghoul watched him with unreadable eyes, then turned to God. "If you have truly been wronged, he can protect you from your enemy and from everything you fear." The prince raised his head and prayed. "Oh God, you answer those who call upon you in desperation. Save me from my enemy and turn him away from me." As soon as he finished, the ghoul drew back and vanished. The prince escaped, returned to his father, and told him how the minister's reckless advice had nearly cost him his life. The vizier let the warning hang in the air. Ruyan is no different. If you trust him, he may kill you in the most terrible way. He cured your body through something you held. Do not imagine he cannot destroy you through something else you touch or smell. The vizier's warning had begun to take root. The king looked toward the far end of the hall. Perhaps you are right. The physician may be a spy sent to kill me. If he could cure me through something I held, he could also kill me through something I smell. What should I do? The vizier bowed a little lower, careful not to reveal his triumph. Send for him now. When he arrives, have him executed. Strike first, before he can strike at you. The king nodded once, surrendering to the fear the vizier had planted. You are right. He sent for Ruyan. Ruyan answered the summons without hesitation. As he approached the court, he reassured himself that what had been decreed could not be avoided, and that what had not been decreed could not harm him. When Ruyan entered the hall, King Yunnan watched him cross the long floor beneath the silent lamps. Do you know why I summoned you? Before the king revealed his purpose, Ruyan thanked him for his past kindness and expressed his trust in God's wisdom. The physician lowered his head with quiet dignity. Only God knows what is hidden. The king's next words froze the room. I summoned you because I intend to kill you. Ruyan stared at him in disbelief. Why should you kill me? What crime have I committed? The king's face hardened, and the warmth left the hall. I have been told that you are a spy sent to destroy me. I will act before you can harm me. With a small motion of his hand, he summoned the executioner. Carry out the sentence and rid us of this danger. Ruyan met the king's gaze without lowering his own. Spare me, and God may spare you. Take my life, and God may bring the same fate upon you. The king refused to listen. Suspicion clouded the king's face. Even Ruyan's calm presence could no longer reach him. I cannot trust you. You cured me through something I held in my hand. I fear you may kill me through something I touch or smell. The old physician placed one hand over his heart. Is this how you reward me? By answering good with evil? The physician's gaze did not leave the king. Will you repay me as the crocodile repaid the one who saved it? The king frowned at the unfinished reference. What happened between them? Ruyan glanced toward the waiting executioner, then back to the king. I cannot tell the story while I stand condemned to die. By God, spare me, and God may spare you. No compassion entered the king's face. No, you will die without delay. When Ruyan understood that the king's decision could not be changed, he wept, grieving that his kindness had been repaid by a man without wisdom or gratitude. The executioner stepped forward, covered the physician's eyes, and waited for the king's command. Ruyan warned that punishing an honest counselor would make others afraid to speak truthfully and allow deceitful advisors to prosper. Ruyan made one final plea. Spare me, and God may spare you. Take my life, and God may bring the same fate upon you. Several of the king's closest attendants rose from their places. Their voices filled the hall, soft at first, then stronger. Your Majesty, spare this physician's life. We have never seen him commit any offense against you. We have seen only that he cured a disease that defeated every doctor and sage. Fear had closed the king's mind to every voice around him. You do not understand. If I spare him, I will surely die. A man who cured me through something I held can kill me through something I smell. He may be a spy expecting a reward for my death. I must kill him, and only then will I be safe. The king remained unmoved. When he knew death was unavoidable, The physician closed his eyes for a moment. Then he drew one slow, quiet breath. If I must die, allow me to return home first. I need to settle my affairs, make arrangements for my burial, and distribute my medical books. Among them is one extraordinary volume that I would like to leave in your treasury. Curiosity flickered through the king's fear. What is special about it? Ruyan lowered his voice. It contains countless secrets. One of them is this. After the sentence has been carried out, open the book, turn 3 pages, and read 3 lines from the left-hand page. My voice will answer any question you ask. The king's fear gave way to wonder. He leaned forward, unable to hide his curiosity. Will you truly speak after death? Ruyan's expression remained calm. Yes, that is one of the book's marvels. The king allowed him to leave under guard. Ruyan went home, settled his affairs, and returned the next day. Princes, advisors, and royal officials filled the court. Ruyan entered carrying an old book, a small container of powder, and a tray. He spread the powder across the tray, then placed the book before the king. Your Majesty, take this book, but do not open it until the sentence has been carried out. Place my head upon this prepared tray, then open the book exactly as I instructed. The executioner carried out the sentence. Following Ruyan's instructions, the king placed the covered head upon the prepared tray. The king opened the book, but its pages clung tightly together. He wet his fingertip with saliva and pried open the first page, then the second and third. Each one resisted him. He looked, but saw no writing. The blank pages unsettled him. He turned the book toward the light. There is nothing here. From the covered tray came Ruyan's voice, faint but unmistakable. Turn more pages. The king kept wetting his fingertip and separating the pages. By the time he had opened 6 pages, the poison hidden in the paper had passed through his skin and into his body. Within moments, the king began to sway. I have been poisoned! Ruyan's final words carried through the silent court. You have met the fate you prepared for others. Do not blame time for what your own choices have brought. King Yunnan collapsed, and his life came to an end. The fisherman held the sealed vessel close while the lesson of the story settled between them. If King Yunnan had spared Sage Ruyan, God might have spared him. Instead, he chose the physician's death and brought destruction upon himself. And you, Genie, if you had spared me, I would have spared you. The fisherman lifted the sealed vessel and listened to the sea beyond it. You wanted nothing but my death, so I will keep you imprisoned and throw you back into the sea. The genie's pride had vanished. From inside the sealed vessel, his voice returned, quiet now and heavy with fear. By God, fisherman, do not do it. Be generous and spare me. Do not answer my wrongdoing in kind. Meet it with goodness instead. As the proverb says, the wrongdoer's own deeds are punishment enough. The fisherman held the brass vessel close. For a moment, only the waves could be heard. I will not release you. I begged for mercy, and you tried to kill me, though I had done nothing but help you. I will cast you back into the sea and warn everyone who comes here. Anyone who finds you will cast you back, and you will remain beneath the water forever. After a pause, the plea returned, softer and more urgent. Release me. Now is your chance to show true generosity. I swear I will never harm you. Instead, I will give you something that will benefit you for the rest of your life. The fisherman made the genie repeat his promise and swear that no harm would come to him. The genie swore upon Solomon's sacred seal that he would repay kindness with kindness. Only after the fisherman had secured every promise did he remove the seal. Smoke poured from the vessel until the genie once again stood on the earth. Then, without warning, he kicked the brass vessel far out into the sea. A rush of fear seized the fisherman, and he murmured under his breath, "That is not a promising sign." Then the fisherman steadied himself. His voice crossed the water, low and clear. "Jenny, God commands us to honor our promises, and every promise will be accounted for. You swore not to betray me. If you break that oath, God will punish you. He may delay justice, but he never forgets. Remember the warning Sage Ruyan gave King Yunnan? Spare me, and God may spare you." The genie laughed. "Follow me, fisherman." The fisherman followed, still unsure whether he had truly escaped death. They left the outskirts of the city, climbed a mountain, and descended into a broad plain. At its center lay a lake. The genie stopped at the water's edge and told the fisherman to cast his net. The fisherman looked into the lake and saw fish in 4 extraordinary colors: white, red, blue, and yellow. Amazed, he cast his net and drew out exactly 4 fish, one of each color. The genie's voice softened with a trace of regret. "Take these fish to the Sultan and present them as a gift. He will reward you well enough to end your poverty. Take this as my apology. I spent 1,800 years beneath the sea, and today is the first time I have seen the world above the water. Cast your net here only once each day. May God keep you." Then he struck the ground with his foot. The earth opened and swallowed him. The fisherman returned to the city, still astonished by all that had happened. He carried the 4 fish home, placed them in a large bowl of water, and watched their brilliant colors flash as they swam. Then he carried them to the palace and presented them to the Sultan. The Sultan was amazed. Never in his life had he seen fish with such colors or such perfect forms. He ordered them taken to a skilled palace cook who had recently entered his service. The vizier carried the fish into the warm palace kitchen and placed them beside the cook. "The Sultan wishes to see your skill. Prepare these extraordinary fish for him." The vizier returned to the Sultan, who ordered him to give the fisherman a generous reward in gold. The fisherman gathered the gold into a cloth pouch and hurried home in delight, buying everything his family needed. Meanwhile, the cook cleaned the fish, arranged them in a pan, and set them over the fire. When one side had browned, she turned them. At that moment, the kitchen wall split open. A graceful young woman stepped through the opening. She was richly dressed in a blue silk head covering jeweled earrings, bracelets, and rings, and she carried a slender bamboo cane. She touched the pan with the tip of her cane. The fire dropped low, and the kitchen became strangely still. "Fish, do you still honor the old promise?" The young woman repeated the question twice more. The 4 fish raised their heads. 4 small voices rose together from the pan. "Yes. If you return, we return. If you keep faith, we keep faith. If you abandon us, we owe you nothing." The young woman overturned the pan with her cane, stepped back through the opening, and disappeared. The wall sealed itself behind her. Only then did the cook faint. When the cook regained consciousness, she found the 4 fish charred black. The cook stared at the blackened fish. Her voice was barely audible beneath the crackle of the fire. "I have failed at the very first test." At that moment, the vizier entered. "Bring the fish to the Sultan." The cook burst into tears and told him what had happened. The vizier could hardly believe her. The vizier summoned the fisherman and asked for 4 more fish exactly like the first. When the cook prepared them in his presence, The same impossible scene unfolded just as she had described. The wall opened, the young woman questioned the fish about their old promise, and the pan overturned. The vizier hurried to the sultan and reported everything he had witnessed. The sultan's curiosity sharpened. He looked once more at the ruined fish. Then I must witness it myself. He ordered the fisherman to bring 4 more fish and gave him 3 days. The fisherman returned to the lake and brought them back at once. Again, the sultan rewarded him generously with gold. Then the sultan told the vizier, "Cook the fish here, in front of me." The vizier cleaned them, placed them in the pan, and turned them when one side was done. The wall split open. This time, a towering man stepped through the wall, powerfully built and carrying a green branch. His voice rolled through the kitchen and shook the hanging pots. "Fish, do you still honor the old promise?" The fish raised their heads. Their 4 voices answered as one. "Yes, if you return, we return. If you keep faith, we keep faith. If you abandon us, we owe you nothing." The man struck the pan with the branch and overturned it. The fish were charred black. Then he stepped back through the opening, and the wall closed behind him. The sultan watched the last trace of magic disappear into the sealed wall. This cannot be ignored. These fish must have an extraordinary history. He ordered the fisherman brought before him. The sultan turned back to the fisherman. "Where did you find these fish?" The fisherman thought of the mountain path he had followed. "In a lake beyond the mountain outside your city. 4 peaks surround it." The sultan studied the fisherman's face. "How long does it take to get there?" "Only half an hour, my lord." The sultan was astonished. He ordered his army to march at once, with the fisherman leading the way. As they traveled, the fisherman silently blamed the genie for drawing him into yet another mystery. They climbed the mountain and descended into a wide plain none of them had ever seen. The sultan and his army stood amazed before the lake, which was surrounded by 4 mountains. The sultan looked from the colored water to the faces of his soldiers. "Has anyone here ever seen this lake before?" The soldiers answered as one. "No." The sultan looked across the unknown lake, watching the 4 colors drift beneath the surface. "By God, I will not return to my city or sit upon my throne until I discover the truth behind this lake and its fish." He ordered the army to camp around the mountains, then summoned his wise and experienced vizier. When night settled over the camp, the sultan drew the vizier away from the others. "I am going to trust you with a secret. Tonight, I will leave the camp alone and seek the truth behind this lake. Sit at the entrance to my tent. Tell the princes, advisors, and royal officials that I am ill and have ordered that no one be admitted. Reveal my plan to no one." The vizier knew better than to argue. The sultan changed into plain clothes, took his sword, and slipped away from the camp. He walked through the night, rested during the fiercest heat of the following day, then continued through the next night. At dawn, he saw a dark shape in the distance and felt a surge of hope. Perhaps someone there could explain the lake. As he drew closer, he discovered a palace built of black stone and plated with iron. One half of its great door stood open, the other remained closed. The sultan knocked gently. No reply came. He knocked a second time, then a third. On the 4th attempt, he knocked loudly, but the palace remained silent. The palace must be empty, he thought. He gathered his courage and entered. Then he called into the empty hall. "Is anyone here?" I am a stranger and a traveler. Can you offer a guest something to eat?" He called again, and then once more, but only his own echo answered. He moved deeper into the palace. No one appeared in the rooms he passed, yet each one was richly furnished. In the central courtyard stood a fountain surrounded by 4 lions of gleaming gold. Water streamed from their mouths like pearls and jewels. Birds circled overhead, trapped beneath a fine net stretched across the open roof. The Sultan marveled at everything he saw, but the silence troubled him. There was still no one to explain the palace, the lake, the fish, or the 4 mountains. He sat between 2 doorways and tried to make sense of it all. Then he heard a low groan, followed by a sorrowful voice lamenting sleeplessness, longing, and ever-deepening grief. The Sultan rose and followed the sound. Behind a curtain at the entrance to a chamber, he found a young man seated on a couch set upon a low platform. The young man was handsome and noble, dressed in a silk robe embroidered with gold, but grief had hollowed his face. A small beauty mark lay beneath one eye. The Sultan greeted him. The young man returned the greeting with a slight nod. "My lord, forgive me for not standing." The Sultan sat beside the young man, careful not to disturb him. "Tell me about the lake, the colored fish, this silent palace, and the grief that has left you here alone." At these words, the young man began to weep. The Sultan leaned closer, speaking gently. "Why do you cry?" The young king lifted his eyes. His voice was tired but clear. "How could I not weep in this condition?" He lifted the lower part of his robe. Above the navel, he was flesh and blood. Below it, his body was smooth, gray stone. The young king drew a slow breath before continuing. "Your Majesty, the story of these fish is so extraordinary that anyone who hears it will remember its lesson forever. My father ruled this city and the 4 Black Islands for 70 years. When he died, I inherited the kingdom. I married my cousin. She seemed to love me so deeply that whenever I was away, she would neither eat nor drink until I returned. We lived together as husband and wife for 5 years. One day, she went to the bathhouse. I ordered the cook to prepare our evening meal, then came here to rest. 2 servant girls stood beside me with fans, one at my head and the other at my feet. I was uneasy about my wife's absence and could not sleep. My eyes were closed, but my mind was fully awake. I heard the girl near my head say to the other, "Our master is wasting the best years of his life. What a tragedy that he is married to such a wicked, faithless woman." The other girl lowered her fan. "A man like our master deserves far better than a wife who betrays him." The first girl glanced toward me. "Does he know what she does, or has he chosen to ignore it?" The other girl lowered her voice. "He knows nothing. Every night, she slips a sleeping drug into his cup. Once he loses consciousness, she dresses and leaves the palace until dawn. When she returns, she burns a powder beneath his nose, and he wakes without knowing she was gone." The world seemed to go dark around me. I could barely endure the hours until evening. My wife returned from the bathhouse. We ate together and spent the evening as usual. Then she called for the drink I usually took before sleep. I secretly poured the drink into the folds of my robe, pretended to swallow it, then lay down and closed my eyes. She looked down at me. Her voice was colder than the night beyond the curtains. "Sleep, and may you never wake. By God, I hate you, and I cannot bear the sight of you." She dressed, left the palace, and walked through the city. I rose, took my sword, and followed at a distance. She continued beyond the city, through mounds and ruins, until she reached a low mud brick building with a domed roof. She went inside. I climbed onto the roof and looked down through an opening. Inside, a gravely ill man lay on a narrow bed of reeds, weak and unable to rise. My wife entered and knelt before him in submission. He raised his head from the reed bed, irritation tightening his exhausted face. "Why are you so late? Our companions were here earlier, but they drank and left with their lovers." "I refused to drink because I was waiting for you." She knelt beside the reed bed, all her attention fixed on the ailing man. "My love, you know I am trapped in a marriage to my cousin. I cannot bear the sight of him. If I did not fear displeasing you, I would destroy his city, leave owls and ravens crying through its ruins, and scatter its stones beyond the farthest mountains." His irritation sharpened, and he warned that if she arrived late again, he would cast her out forever. She bowed her head and wept. "My love, you are all I have. If you send me away, I am lost. There is no one in my heart but you." She begged until he finally forgave her. Then she moved closer to the bed, watching his face. "Is there anything for me to eat?" His answer came slowly. "Lift the bowl. Beneath it are cooked rat bones. Eat them. In that jar you will find sour beer. Drink it." She ate and drank, washed her hands, and lay beside him on the reeds. Rage overwhelmed me. I climbed down from the roof, entered the chamber, drew my sword, and struck the man. I believed the blow had ended his life. But he survived, gravely wounded. I did not harm my wife. I wiped the blade clean, sheathed it, and returned to the palace, where I lay in bed until morning. After a long pause, the young king returned to his story. The next morning, she appeared dressed in mourning, her hair cut short and her face hidden beneath a dark veil. "Do not blame me. My mother has died. My father was killed in war. One brother died from a snake bite, and the other was crushed beneath a collapsing building. I have every reason to grieve." I hid my anger and gave her no sign of suspicion. "Do as you wish. I will not stop you." She remained in mourning for a full year. When the year had passed, she turned her attention to the empty courtyard. "I want to build a domed tomb within the palace. I will live there alone with my sorrow and call it the House of Sorrows." I offered no resistance. "Do as you wish." She built the chamber and moved the wounded man inside. No medicine could heal him. Though he could swallow broth and wine, he had been unable to speak since the day I struck him. Yet he remained alive. Each morning, my wife visited him. She wept beside him and carried him broth and wine. I endured this for another year. Then one day, I entered without warning and found her weeping beside him, openly declaring that her heart belonged to him and that she wished never to be separated from him, even in death. Hearing this, I drew my sword. The blade left its sheath with a quiet hiss. Those are the words of a traitor, someone who betrays the one who trusted her. I raised my hand to strike her. She sprang to her feet, realizing that I was the one who had wounded her lover. The air seemed to tighten around us as she uttered a sharp command. "By my magic, become half stone and half man." In an instant, I became what you see now, neither dead nor fully alive. Then she placed the entire city under a spell, its markets, fields, and people. 4 communities lived there: Muslims, Christians, Jews, and Magians. She transformed them all into fish, marking each community with a different color: white for the Muslims, red for the Magians, blue for the Christians, and yellow for the Jews. She transformed the 4 black islands into 4 mountains and filled the land around them with this lake. Every day, she subjects me to a cruel ritual of punishment, leaving me weak and exhausted. Then she lays a rough cloth over the upper half of my body and covers it with these royal robes. I place my hope in God and pray for the strength to endure. The young king wept. Compassion softened the Sultan's face. Young man, your story has broken my heart. Where is this woman now? The young king looked toward the darkened window. Her lover lies in the domed tomb. She visits him once each day. Before going to him, she subjects me to the same cruel punishment. I cry out, but I cannot move to defend myself. Afterward, she carries broth and wine to him. A quiet resolve settled over the Sultan. By God, I will help you in a way that future generations will remember. He remained with the young king until night. In the hour before dawn, he removed his outer garments, took his sword, and entered the House of Sorrows. Candles and oil lamps burned around the wounded man. The Sultan ended the danger swiftly, then hid the body in an abandoned well. Then he returned to the chamber, put on the man's clothes, lay in his place, and hid his drawn sword beside him. After sunrise, the sorceress entered the young king's chamber, removed his outer robes, and began the same cruel ritual of punishment. Years of pain had worn the young king's voice thin. Please, I have suffered enough. Have mercy on me. The sorceress did not soften. Did you show mercy to me? Did you spare the man I love? When the punishment was over, she laid the rough cloth over him, covered him again with his robes, and went to the House of Sorrows carrying wine and a bowl of broth. She entered weeping, and the lamplight trembled across her face. My lord, speak to me. Please answer me. She begged him to end his silence, saying that love and separation had already punished her enough. From beneath the blankets, the Sultan answered in a faint imitation of the wounded man's voice. There is no power and no strength except through God. At the sound of his voice, joy overcame her, and she fainted. When she recovered, she leaned close to the bed. My lord, are you truly getting better? The Sultan lowered his voice. Faithless woman, you do not deserve an answer from me. The sorceress leaned closer, unable to understand his coldness. Why? Beneath the blanket, the Sultan let a moment of silence pass. You torment your husband day after day. His cries and prayers to God keep me awake through the night. If not for the suffering you cause him, I would have recovered long ago. That is why I have refused to speak. She hesitated before answering. With your permission, I will free him from the spell. Beneath the blankets, the Sultan continued in the same weak, uneven voice. Free him and give us both peace. She bowed her head without question. I hear and obey. She left the House of Sorrows, returned to the palace, filled a bowl with water, and whispered words of magic over it. The water began to boil as though it were being heated over a flame. She sprinkled the water over the young king. Steam curled around his stone body as the final words left her lips. If God created you in this form, remain as you are. But if magic has changed you, return to the form in which God created you. At once, the stone softened into living flesh, and the young king stood whole again. The young king drew his first free breath in many years. Joy filled his face. There is no God but God. Her voice drifted through the chamber, soft and cold. Leave this place. Do not return, or I will kill you." She drove him from the chamber with threats. He left without resistance, then hid nearby where he could watch what happened next. The sorceress returned to the House of Sorrows. Her footsteps softened as she approached the bed, and all the desperation she had hidden from the court showed on her face. "My lord, come out to me. Let me see you whole again." The disguised sultan answered slowly, keeping his voice weak and uneven. "You have cut off a branch, but the root remains." Hope gave way to confusion on the sorceress's face. "My love, what is the root?" The disguised sultan paused before continuing. "The people of this city and the 4 black islands are the root. Every night at midnight, the fish lift their heads and curse both of us. Their voices prevent me from recovering. Restore the city and its people. Then return, take my hand, and help me rise. I can already feel my strength returning." Believing every word, she rose without hesitation. "At once, my love, in the name of God." She hurried to the lake, scooped up some of its water, spoke a series of magic words over it, and cast it back into the lake. The lake trembled. The fish became human again, and the spell over the city broke. Markets, streets, and homes reappeared in an instant, and the people resumed the lives they had known before the enchantment. The 4 mountains opened and became islands once more. The sorceress rushed back to the House of Sorrows, still believing the Sultan was her wounded lover. She steadied herself before speaking. "My love, give me your hand so I may kiss it." From the bed came the Sultan's faint voice. "Come closer." She leaned toward him. The moment she came within reach, the Sultan drew his sword and brought her reign of cruelty to an end. He left the chamber and found the young king waiting for him, fully restored. The Sultan congratulated him on his freedom. The young king bowed respectfully and thanked him. In the restored palace, the Sultan turned toward the young king. "Will you remain here in your kingdom, or come with me to mine?" The young king looked toward the distant road. "Your Majesty, do you know how far your city truly is from mine?" The Sultan smiled faintly, certain that he remembered the distance correctly. 2.5 days. The young king paused before answering. "The enchantment made our kingdom seem close. In truth, a full year's journey lies between us. Even so, I will not leave you, not even for a moment." The Sultan rejoiced. "Praise be to God, who has given me a son, for I have never had a child." They embraced with joy. The young king then summoned his ministers and told them that he intended to devote some time to worship, and they prepared everything he would need. Then he set out with the Sultan, accompanied by 50 guards and a caravan of gifts. Their journey lasted an entire year, with only brief stops along the way. After waiting at the mountain camp in vain, the vizier had eventually led the army home. A full year later, the 2 kings approached the Sultan's city. The vizier and the army rode out to meet them, having long believed the Sultan was lost. The Sultan entered the city, took his throne, and told the vizier everything that had happened to the young king. The vizier congratulated the young king on his deliverance. Once order had been restored, the Sultan distributed gifts and favors among the people. Then he turned toward the vizier. "Bring me the fisherman who first brought the colored fish." And so, the fisherman's long day at the shore became the beginning of a life he could never have imagined. The fisherman became the wealthiest man of his time. His daughters became queens, and his entire family lived in honor and prosperity for the rest of their lives. Yet whenever he looked across the sea, he remembered the sealed vessel, the towering genie, and the extraordinary chain of events that had changed his fate forever. The waves continued to rise and fall beneath the evening sky. But the sea had not finished telling its stories. Far beyond the horizon, another sailor was about to face violent storms, monstrous creatures, hidden islands, and wonders no traveler had ever seen. And on his very first voyage, he would discover that not every island is made of stone. His name was Sinbad,